Right then, when I relaxed, I heard this ooh coming from right behind me. I don't think I've ever jumped up, spun around, and drawn a bow so fast. Of course, you can't handle a bow and light at the same time, so I was stuck there in the dark with something whooping right behind me with only a bow. All right, my friends, let's talk about Bigfoot again today. What do you guys think of Bigfoot? What do you think of other cryptids? Do you believe? Are you indifferent? Have you experienced something yourself? Because if you have, I really want to hear from you. Now, I've been interested in like a good couple years, and my partner thinks I'm crazy.
What?
When I first learned that Bigfoot could potentially be a paranormal or a spiritual entity that travels dimensions and probably isn't even something that is native to this planet.
Man, you crazy, Jesus! You're crazy!
That's when my curiosity and my interest really started growing more and more, and my mind was blown. I never could think in such a spiritual way about Bigfoot, and that this thing potentially is traveling through dimensions and through some different plane to visit our planet, to then eat and hang out for a bit in the forests because it loves our planet and it loves our forests, and then just heads back home. I really want to dive deeper into this, and I did find another channel that I really enjoy watching, and that's where I was actually more open up to this theory. So if you want me to link that or let you know that channel is, let me know. Let me know if you're interested. But let's get back into Reddit. Let's read a couple stories because that's what I'm here for. All right, not 100% on this one, but the story is worth reading. This is from 11 years ago. So I believe it was May 13th, 2012. I had taken a train to Olympia, Washington, and then hitchhiked the rest of the way to Westport, Washington, because I wanted to learn to surf. Cool. I'm experienced in the outdoors and hitchhike semi-regularly. Don't hitchhike. Just don't do it. Why? Anyway, after renting a surfboard and flailing around in the water for the day, it was getting close to sunset and I had to find a place to sleep. I found out that it was illegal to sleep on the beach, state land. But someone suggested I go to Grayland State Park, just south. Not only did I have the option of paying for a campsite, but I could also find a place to lay my stuff down. I had a ground tarp, a sleeping bag, and my wetsuit. Sounds awful, just saying. And sleep without being bothered. Now in May, the weather is windy and the water is freezing. Surfing was unpleasant and this beach is pretty empty, except for a few unoccupied at the time summer homes, etc. So that's what I did. I hitchhiked down Highway 105 to the park, decided against buying a campsite, and hiked through the woods to the beach. The wooded area behind the highway and the beach is probably only a couple 100 yards deep, but the trees aren't very tall and form a thick canopy, somewhat claustrophobic. I found a couple small landmarks, a certain rock, a beach marker with a streamer on it, to remember where my things were and set them down. I grabbed a sandwich from my bag and went back to the campsite area so I could charge my cell phone in the bathroom. I was surprised at how empty the area was. There was one RV with the blinds down and a couple fast asleep in one campsite. Otherwise, it was deserted. As I sat, disappointed that the bathroom had no electricity, I smoked a long cigar and enjoyed my time alone. Night fell. It was bedtime. I began to walk back towards my impromptu beach camp where I realized I couldn't see a damn thing. The moon was relatively bright, but the wind was intense and the forest canopy blocked any moonlight. I continued walking west through the trees with my hands out in front of me so I didn't hit anything. At this point, I was creeped out. Dark, empty woods at night are creepy. No, you don't say. Howling wind that covers any other sound is just creepy. But I pressed on because I'm more adventurous than that. Besides, the beach was easy to find. Just walk west until you reach the Pacific, the big ocean. You can't miss it. I came out onto the beach and none of my landmarks were there. I might have gone a bit north or south, I don't know, but I thought the dim light from my cell phone screen could help me find that weird rock near the edge of the woods. I went back into the forest. Never had I thought I could be so lost in such a small area. I couldn't have been more than half a mile from my things. Yes, the woods are creepy, but I'll hang in there. Until the scream. Directly behind and to my right, the most startling, I think he's saying the most startling. The most startling, that was my attempt, I've ever heard. I jumped, swore, and began to run. I didn't know what that was, and I didn't want to find out. I couldn't run too fast because I couldn't see. The noise continued, although I was getting further from it. That was encouraging. I ran a little faster until I slammed my left shoulder into a tree I didn't see. Ouch. Barely catching myself, I slowed down, despite the adrenaline. As I walked slowly, feeling tree trunks and trying not to trip over rocks, I remembered reading that these are contained screech owls. Those aren't scary. Eventually, I came back to the beach, wandered up and down until I found my stuff and went to sleep. Shit, I thought. Screech owls are startling. That was 2 summers ago. Earlier this year, after getting interested in Bigfoot, I was telling someone my story. They asked if I could send them a recording of a western screech owl, so I googled it. I couldn't actually find a recording that matched what I heard. Screech owls have several calls, but this was not one of them. Weird, I thought. Then later I found out that Grays Harbor County, where I was, has some of the highest numbers of BFRO reports in Washington. What I heard wasn't the famous whoop howl, but it was similar in pitch and unbelievably loud. I'd hardly call a scary noise in the woods proof of an undiscovered ape, but there's my story. What did you think of that one? Do you know what a screech owl sounds like? Because I had no idea. Yeah, let me know what you think. I found another story from, again, 11 years ago. So I'm newish here, but I've always been interested in the idea of a North American ape. I'm not convinced that they exist, and I haven't ever seen one. But I have no doubts that something fitting the description could survive quite handily across the country. I've had one experience that's left me confused, so here it goes. I've always been an avid outdoorsman, always hunted, always fished. I'm from Missouri, and I know what we have and what we don't have. We have a few mountain lions scattered around and even fewer black bears. The only common things that are big and wild are deer, coyote, and turkeys. And that being said, I really enjoy deer hunting. Our farm is situated on bluffs and ridges along the Missouri River, in the center of the state. And while it's actually pretty populated, the terrain is incredibly rough and hard to get around on. That being said, our acreage isn't huge, but the surface area is. All kinds of ravines, gullies, hollows, etc. America is really fascinating. It really fascinates me. There's just so much land out there. I'm in the UK. We got a tiny country. We're teeny tiny. It was a few years ago when I was halfway through undergrad and went home on a weekend during bow season. So it's a half-hour drive from the house to the farm, and I showed up well before daylight. And as luck would have it, I forgot my keys to my dad's box stand. We keep it locked so the neighbors don't vandalize it. Fair enough. That didn't bother me much though, because like I said, rough terrain, it isn't hard to find a spot that sits over a game trail where I can have some elevation and cover. And I grew up around this farm, so I know where trails were. All I had was a pack with some stuff like a knife and rope and tags, my bow, and a little LED flashlight. I took off down the side of a ridge and found a good spot where I could lean against a tree that overlooked a trail with some bush in front of me for cover. Figured I'd wait for the sun to come up and a doe would come by and I'd be home with a deer by lunchtime. Yummy! I'm just kidding. Anyway, got to the spot, set down my pack, nocked an arrow, and of course turned off my light. I got there probably too early and there was no sign of daylight yet, especially considering how thick the woods are. I'd been standing there for half an hour, maybe 45 minutes, and then I heard a pack of coyotes. Like I said, not unusual, we have those. What I didn't like was that I was on the ground with only a bow in the dark and the yips and howls were getting closer. You won't find me out there at that time of day. It would be a real pain in the ass to accidentally surprise a pack of yotes like that. Is it yotes? Yeah. I've never heard of them bothering people, but you know how surprised animals freak out. I don't want to surprise any animals. I don't want to freak them out. No, thank you. So I was getting ready to maybe arrow a coyote and was listening intently to where they were. As they came closer, I noticed something bigger was with them. What now? What? My initial thought was that they were chasing a deer. I could hear leaves like crazy and some limbs snapping and stuff like that. Once again, that all makes sense. I had decided that it was a big deer, maybe two of them together. Yummy. Sorry. They were really tearing up the leaves as they came, and the yipping and howling was right there with them. They must have passed me maybe 30 or 40 yards further down the hillside, went right on by without noticing me at all. They were in a heck of a hurry too. Before I could even think of estimating the time, I had lost the sound of the yotes in the ravines and woods. I eased up then. Probably wasn't going to have to shoot anything for a while yet, if anything came around at all. And right then, when I relaxed, I heard this. Ooh. Did you like that? Was it good? Coming from right behind me. Nah. I don't think I've ever jumped up, spun around, and drawn a bow so fast. Of course, you can't handle a bow and light at the same time, so I was stuck there in the dark with something whooping right behind me with only a bow. I didn't move. You can imagine I was a little tense. Yeah. After about a minute, I left off the draw, but I kept my release on the string. I didn't move for another hour, not till I could see a ways without a light. After the sun came up enough, I walked out very slowly. Can you imagine he was there for an hour? Also, is it a he or a she? I can't remember. Sorry. Anyway, they were there for an hour. After the sun came up, I walked out very slowly and kept looking behind me. Got the truck and went home. I was totally done hunting for the weekend. So what was it? Like I said, I've been in those woods my entire life and I have never heard anything like that. I thought about howls and looked up every owl I could find and none of them were like that. The only thing that I've ever heard sounds like it are supposed Bigfoot vocalizations. So then that makes me wonder, was a pack of coyotes chasing a Sasquatch? Not likely. So then I thought, what if the Sasquatch was chasing the coyotes? Either to kill them out of spite or to kill them for food. At any rate, the whole thing was weird. I would never even have thought remotely possible for something like that, if they exist at all, to be found in Missouri so close to civilization. Of course, after I did some Googling, I found other cases of Missouri sightings, and a lot of them. So, thoughts? I'm going to ask you, what are your thoughts? I've actually, because I've seen so many videos on YouTube about Missouri and Missouri sightings that, yeah, I was like, yeah, I've heard a lot of story about Missouri sightings. So let me know what you think. I'm really keen to know your thoughts. Okay, my friends, as always, it was amazing reading these stories with you. Please let me know if you have stories of your own. I'd really love to hear some stuff that isn't on Reddit, some of your personal things that maybe you haven't ever shared with anybody. Yeah, get in touch. My email is in the description of this video. Sorry, I don't know what that was. Anyway, I'll see you later, my friends, and have a spooky dooky rest of your day.